In this video, we're going to establish this other special trig limit. Limit as x goes to 0 of 1 minus cosine x divided by x is 0. So we already know from the previous video that the limit as x goes to 0 of sine of x over x is 1. And yeah, we use theta instead of x, but here I want to use x just to emphasize that it doesn't really matter what we call the variable. The result is still going to be the same. So now let's go ahead and start. First, before we take any limits, let's do some algebraic manipulations. So 1 minus cosine x over x, what I want to do is multiply the top and the bottom by 1 plus cosine of x. So when I distribute on the top, really what I'm going to end up doing on the top is foiling. So when I FOIL this, first, outer, inner, last, I end up with 1 minus cosine squared of x on the top. And on the bottom, I don't want to distribute anything, I want to keep these separate. So 1 minus cosine squared of x, that is sine squared of x, and the denominator stays the same. So the numerator changes like this, because remember that Pythagorean trig identity that says sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x is 1. So if we subtract cosine squared of x from both sides of this, then we end up with 1 minus cosine squared of x equals sine squared of x. And that's how we get this step over here. And now what I want to do is split apart my sine factors. So I'm going to write this as sine of x over x times sine of x over 1 plus cosine of x. So all this stuff that's squished together, I'm just pulling it apart right over here into this multiplication here. So what we've just seen is that 1 minus cosine x all divided by x is sine of x over x times sine of x over 1 plus cosine of x. So since these two things are equal to each other, then if we take the limit as x goes to 0 of both of those, then we'll get the same thing. So two things equal each other, so the limit of those things also equals each other. So let's go ahead and see what happens. We take the limit as x goes to 0 of 1 minus cosine x over x. That's the same thing as the limit as x goes to 0 of this product here. So limit of this product is the product of the limits. And we know from the previous video that the limit as x goes to 0 of sine of x over x is 1. And this other limit, we can actually just do direct substitution. So if we just directly evaluate with x equals 0, we get sine of 0, which is 0, over 1 plus cosine of 0. Cosine of 0 is 1, so we get 0 over 1 plus 1. And of course 0 over 2 is just 0, so we end up with 1 times 0, which is 0. So that shows us that this limit, this special trig limit, is 0. Now just a quick side note, cosine of x minus 1 is equal to negative the quantity 1 minus cosine of x. Therefore, the limit as x goes to 0 of cosine of x minus 1 over x is equal to the limit as x goes to 0 of negative the quantity of 1 minus cosine x over x. Well, this negative we can pull out of the limit, so this negative comes out over here. And this limit, this is the special trig limit that we just looked at. So we know this is equal to 0, and this negative sign out here, it really means we're multiplying by negative 1. So overall, we get negative 1 times 0, which is just 0. And I just wanted to point this out because sometimes this special trig limit might be more useful, or it might show up in this form over here. But these two limits are exactly the same. Really what we're just saying is, well, with this limit here, we're just taking this limit and multiplying it by negative 1. Well, this limit is 0, so 0 times negative 1 is still 0.